Hello, everybody. This is Xander Brothel, Director of Marketing Operations with the Revenue Growth Architects podcast presented by CS2. Joining me again today is Crissy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Crissy. How are you?
Good. Yeah, my second time back. I'm loving being back on the podcast. So thanks for having me, Xander.
It's great to have you back on. And we were doing our sound check. You have a very soothing voice, and I always appreciate that going on to the podcast. So quite jarring compared to me, where I'm like, hey, how's it going?
No. Well, ask my daughter how she likes my voice. She started to be like, "You need to stop shouting, Mama," and I'm like, "I don't really even yell at you, like."
At that age where everything's critical.
Give me a break. I was like, shout like 2 times, and I'm a horrible mom. Come on.
Well, today we are talking about an interesting topic. I think one that's very timely. I'm hearing it a lot with clients as I'm working, and that is identifying quick wins. We hear that often.
Yeah.
And what we really want to talk about today is identifying quick wins by utilizing your funnel data, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
And at the beginning of the year, we had talked through some predictions for 2023. Some of them came true. And, at the end of the day, I think one of them that we're missing is just going back to the foundation and going back to the basics of your marketing organization. A lot of the organizations that I'm seeing are rushing through and trying to make an impact, right? It's a lot of conversations around how do I get more volume, and maybe missing some of the bigger picture that marketing can bring to the table. We're really focused on the short term and maybe losing sight of the long-term wins. So hopefully today, I think that you have some really great insights that you've been noodling on, Crissy, on how can we start doing this right? How can we focus on truly identifying quick wins that can make the biggest impact with our funnel data?
Yeah. So I think that I have a lot of sympathy for marketers right now. I'm talking to a lot of marketers, talking to a lot of our clients, and obviously the market operations team too, but there's a lot of pressure to just show improvement. How can you impact pipeline? How can you, like, with all of the money that you're spending, even with us, right? Like with your marketing ops spend and your agency, what are some quick wins that we can see and show to finance or the board of like, we're actually making the best of use of our dollars? And so there's always this conversation of like quick wins, which in some cases we know as marketers, like there's not a lot of like things that you can do quickly that usually ends up, creating pipeline. And so like if you come up with a new campaign, which is I think where a lot of people go, oh, let's just come up with a new campaign. Let's just come up with a new message and starting from scratch. And in some ways, yes, you maybe will get some pipeline out of that, but it might be, a year from now, or you're just looking to doing these quick things and it's very disjointed. Like you said, it's like the random acts of marketing. But one place that I think that the team can look to uncover quick wins that can impact their pipeline is really their funnel data. And so it can inform you on some things that you can do operationally, but also can inform the team on what they can do from like a demand gen perspective or campaign perspective. And so I think that is great because a lot of the things they can do is actually wouldn't require new spend or even like new programs. It could be even just improvements. And when you're improving things or improving conversion rates down the funnel, that obviously will lead to more pipeline because the more opportunities you're generating, hopefully more you're closing, and then you'll end up with more pipeline, more revenue. So so the funnel data is where it's at, and I'm going to talk about that. So the first thing though, Xander, I will say is some people might have a struggle like trying to find their funnel data. As I think a lot of companies maybe don't even have this operationalized. I mean, I was even talking to a head of a VC recently, and she said, I would say over half of our portfolio they're not even able to report on their funnel. And when I say funnel, I mean lead life cycle and the buyer journey, and you're tracking your stages through that. And so it's super important to just be like, do we even have the data to do this? And if you don't, that's where you go down the route of, okay, let's create a project for this. And so, yes, that's not a quick win, but if you actually develop focusing on creating a funnel that you can actually report on, and that the operationalization of that, like your lead process that supports it, if anything, you'll just have a win there, a huge win for the company. And you'll start to see improvements down the funnel because there'll be better lead process. You'll be able to track things a bit better to make these decisions. So I will say, like, if you're listening, you're like, I got to use my funnel data, but what if my funnel data sucks? One, figure out how to remedy that. And then two, if you don't have any funnel at all, take on that project. And you'll find that it really helps you focus on where you should be focusing anyway, rather than all this proliferary stuff that probably isn't going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to measure what you want to improve.
Right.
It's really hard to improve when you turn around and you're like, I don't know really where to start. And I think that's something that I've been trying to change how I approach like funnel projects is it's not just a reporting project, because it's also an operational efficiency project, right? Is increasing your conversions from sales accepted to the next stage. And that you might be identifying a huge bottleneck that we're not even aware of. We don't have visibility into, 80% of our leads that are getting followed up on after the first touch. We can start to tell that data, you can make the most out of the money that you've already spent.
Totally. And not only like to that, but not only is it like not like is really like a better lead process or better buyer journey, because when you actually take the time to work as a team to figure out like what are our stages, what are the definitions, what's that the actual like handoff points for these stages, then the prospect will see that because they'll probably get like, send over the sales when they're really meant to. They'll get better, qualification because maybe now there's required BANT criteria in order to get a meeting booked. And so it's a forcing function really to create alignment across the team, improve some of the buyer process, and really just make that streamlined. And so, it's just like the number one place you should focus, but I will say that like it's a forcing function to do all that, and that'll likely increase your conversions just naturally, like down the funnel, So,
are there any quick wins within that type of a project that you could do? Like if you had to choose, what would I prioritize if I just can't get buy-in on a full life cycle project? Is there anything that you'd recommend just trying to get in?
I think trying to just make sure that your stages are defined really well and that the whole revenue team is kind of on board with it. And then just put in some in my eyes, just make sure it's like being tracked properly. I think the quick win though first is just getting everyone aligned and then getting everyone aligned on the process. Because once you then find a tracking method, which we suggest is a custom object, if you have like your stages and then the statuses within your CRM defined and then how people flow through the funnel, that's pretty much like all what's going to inform like how you then operationalize that into a tracking method. So starting there, but I think also because the definitions and people don't realize, I've come into orgs and they're like, yeah, we have definitions. And I'm like, I start reading them and it's like an MQL is someone who is just ready for sales, sales ready. I'm like, that's a status. That's not a definition.
Right.
It's like, no, like what are you actually using to power that? Like who is actually doing that? Is it like only hand raisers? Is it hand raiser and then people have reached a scoring threshold? And is it people in your persona? And so then it informs your scoring model. Or beyond that, it's like, okay, when a meeting is booked, okay, what is the steps for that? Like, what's the criteria for when a meeting is booked? And then what's the criteria and process for how a meeting can then get hand over to sales? And so if you actually put more if you actually get people to think about, okay, what should the definition be? There's going to be like more like kind of strict criteria. but then also there's not all of this like, ambiguity or just like there's no standardization, right? You could just send anyone over as an MQL. You could just create any meeting, and that's going to create a lot of volume, yes, but it's not going to actually lead to probably what you need as far as pipeline revenue.
Absolutely. So if I do have all of this data, how do I go about using it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best thing you can get from your funnel data is really your conversion rates through the funnel. The volume is really good too, but volume is, subjective kind of to like, okay, we got like 100 MQLs. Like, what does that mean, or sales ready leads? But the conversion rates will really help you identify like where are their bottlenecks, like how, like, or, why are they not flowing through the funnel? And or like, why is this conversion rate just like really low, like for this specific stage? And what can we do there? So to really like dig into it. And then the great thing too is if you're tracking your funnel properly, you could also slice that data by different things, like by region, by persona, and by even like MQL tier. I know we did a podcast on MQL tiering coming out soon, and so or by this time it already came out. So but you could even look at, okay, what's our conversion rate for inbound hand raisers versus outbound, right? It can really inform a lot. And so the conversion rates through the funnel and looking at that can really help. So I'm going to take an example, right? So and it's a really good diagnosis tool. It's like the best thing marketers and can do is like to just kind of uncover things. So and looking at over time, one thing I would say is make sure you're looking at your data like over time. You're not just saying like, oh, what's their conversion rate for like this month or whatever. It's like, no, you need history. Yeah, you need history. You need to actually, look at like cohorted, like, okay, here are my MQLs from, X time frame, and you want to leave enough time, mostly like include only people who have had a full funnel journey if you can, but if you can't, like looking at long enough time where the data makes sense, and then look at that cohorted view, and I mean like just people that MQL during a certain time frame, and then how they've flown through the funnel. A lot of times people would be like, oh, what's our conversion rate from, MQL to SQL, and then they'll just look at MQLs generated that month. That's not going to get you anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So make sure you look at that, and then sometimes you can also see seasonality too in your conversion rates if you look at it over time. So do that first. Make sure you're actually looking at a cohort view. But one conversion rate that you can look at is like sales ready, or what you might call an MQL, to sales accepted. So that's like a working status. Like your rep picks it up, an SDR usually, they start working it. This can be arbitrarily like really confused too. So if you're seeing like 100%, that's probably wrong. It probably means that you're just like pushing someone into an outreach sequence. There's an automated follow-up and stuff like that. So I would kind of maybe look beyond that too then and go straight to sales ready to meeting booked, like if you have that issue. But if not, so some things that you really want to do is like start asking yourself questions. So, okay, why is it low? What, some people get a conversion rate here. It should be like 100% if you could, but not because of your automated system, but if it's actually a really good lead. So I mean, like, yes, it would be great if it was 100% because you're saying no every lead, but it's probably not. But if you could get there to be like 80%, and then exclude anyone who's not going to like disqualify, then it's probably good. But questions to ask yourself. So like, are these leads like we're generating actually in like the right fit, like our ICP? That could dictate then, maybe having different criteria for your scoring. Is there a process issues? Are SDRs not properly following up? You might have leads just sitting there still in sales ready, but it's probably because no one just ever worked them. Maybe they don't know where to find their leads. Maybe there's an issue with where they're spending their time. Are they getting pulled from outbound and trying to do inbound? Is there not a great like process for follow up there?
Routing
Uh,
broken.
is routing broken? Yes,
Yeah.
big one. Yeah. And then is there a process issue where maybe you have your criteria, like another scoring thing is your criteria too loose? Are you just like automatically sending everyone to sales? Um, and so that's a lot of things that you can look at. And then you can even dig into certain things like by region, especially if you like just added a new region too. That's really interesting. Um, and um, and then also by like persona, like I said, like if you do think, oh, maybe it's our persona, okay, that's when you can like dive into the data deeper and say like, okay, what is the lead grade on these people? Or, are we mostly seeing certain titles are falling, like the sales reps are automatically disqualifying them? Do we have like junk that's just coming through? And like, what are we doing about that on the front end? So, um, so you can see you're like questioning, and that helps you dive deeper into the data. And then you can figure out like really quick wins, like doing a quick change to your lead scoring. It can be, but if it's an improvement, that's a good place to focus. Focusing on training and enablement for your SDR so they actually know who to follow up on. And then also maybe giving SDR tools for better follow-ups and making sure they have like outreach or sales off sequences they can personalize, not make it too automated, um, so that they can actually get to their leads in fast enough way. And then also making sure their time is kind of directed. Like, okay, don't you know, spend time working your inbound lead or your sales ready leads, but also if you want to do prospecting, spend like 20% of your time. So all of those things like require no marketing spend, really.
Yeah.
Except for like the outreach tools or something, but even then, like you don't even need to do that. Like you could figure out something else. So, but a lot of it doesn't require new spend, doesn't require new tech, doesn't require spinning up a campaign, but can actually improve the conversion and hopefully find you, you know, better efficiency across the team to create like more meetings too.
Yeah. I'm going to say one that's super obvious, but
Yeah.
maybe missing for some folks. Taking time to identify what reports do I need,
Okay.
because maybe you're not even looking at the data. I mean, it happens, right? You spend all this time, maybe you built out your life cycle, but then you got pulled into another priority, and you didn't quite get that analytics framework that we like to operate out of, where you have something that you can always go back and trust. And maybe there's a lack of visibility. I think that a lot of folks spend a lot of time like building out SLAs for their first touch, but then they maybe lose sight of, are we getting enough tasks and activities actually logged against all of the people?
Yeah.
Or are they just going into another view and it's falling out of our SDR buckets?
Yeah.
Really making sure that we have the right visibility throughout the funnel can go a long way as well.
Yeah. I think it creates conversations too that like are necessary. Like you said, like if you have people looking at the data, or it informs you to say, hey, we need to make sure like the SDR manager has this report, like they should be tracking it with us and uncovering it. So just getting to that habit, too, will just make you uncover like, yes, maybe we need analytics framework, which I love. But it starts the conversation with other departments, which I think just like boosts alignment. I'm just all for, marketing sales alignment. Like, I mean, everyone says that they are, but honestly, I still see in practice they're really not. So I don't shy away from just saying that. I think it's a big problem that if a lot of companies solved, I think they would see more success. But yeah. But it informs that partnership when you're coming to the
Absolutely.
table.
I agree
Yeah.
with that 100%.
I do have another example. So another example that you can look at is like meeting booked opportunity. And I think this is actually one that can be really useful because it's the closest to pipeline generation. So actually, if you want to see some really quick wins right away on pipeline, this could be an area to really focus. The closer you are to improving the conversion rate that's generating pipeline, the more revenue you're going to close too. So in a quick way. So I think some questions to ask yourself is like, are meetings being secured through like too many coercive like offers? Like, are you like always offering like a gift or gift card or something like that just to get the meeting? You know, it's likely that's not going to be a great meeting, or if they even show up. You know,
Yeah.
um,
What do you recommend in that case? Like,
yeah. So
what's an alternative that you find to work?
yeah, I think like if you're going to do any type of gifting, I think it should be not to get the meeting, but to reward when the meeting had already taken place. And I think that you can actually spend more. So instead of like saying, "Oh, hey, I'm going to give someone like a $5 Starbucks gift card," which is like, who cares? Like for trying to get a meeting, it's like maybe focus on directing more budget into something when they've already had the meeting. You send them a nicer gift, send them like a goodie link or send no so gift that's like a bit more higher value, and you'll have and ask for it's okay to like ask for their address at that point and stuff like that. So um I think it's more like gifting for your time after they've given you the time.
One thing that going with the coffee gift card, I like where it's not hey, take a meeting with us, get a gift card. But
Right.
after I've already like scheduled the meeting,
Yes,
you kind of proactively get that, hey, thanks for giving us your time. Here's a coffee, so that way
totally.
you have it for our call. I don't know, it just makes me go, okay, I'm gonna actually show up to this meeting.
Yeah, or one
You
time I had
know,
someone send me a coffee card plus a coffee mug, and I really liked
it's nice, yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was like, oh yeah, enjoy like have this coffee with me as we do our demo, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Um,
It's an interesting way of flipping like the tactic and how
yeah,
you go about doing it. It's the same or maybe a little bit different of your budget, but you can maybe make more of a lasting impression.
yeah, and I think it's like you said, like the messaging or the goal. It's like, okay, don't just like, oh yeah, we're gonna now start offering a gift like a gift card to try and score the meeting. It's more like we're gonna try and just make it a bit so that they show up
Yeah.
a little bit better. And I'm actually talking to that about with a client right now because and that could be really useful. Um, it's not like it's maybe not guaranteed, but it's just a nice thing to do.
Okay.
Um, and then for uh I think another thing is like to ask is like, are SDRs even doing enough qualification? I think a lot of the time for meetings, they're just like gold on, a big volume number. So they're just like, I'm going to get a meeting at any cost because I think a lot of the times SDRs are sometimes compensated not based on the meeting completed, which I think is wrong, but the meeting booked. And there's some cases where there's a valid reason for that. It's an enterprise deal. Sometimes it's hard to get those meetings and it's hard to get like that turned in pipeline or but if you have a no-show, I don't know. But anyway, so is there no qualification during the qualification process? Are they actually like ready for the meeting? Is there a real need there? Or was there some type of communicate something at any cost and, find someone who's interested, but we know they're not really in our ICP and take the meeting anyway. Um, and then the rest of it is kind of like training issues. So like are AEs trained on how to convert meeting stops properly or, again, like how is that handoff between AEs and SDRs? Like, um, or SDRs to AEs. And sometimes you'll even just find a just process issue, like,
Hmm.
around that, or people stepping on each other's toes or something. So, which can maybe create a bad buyer experience. Um, Also creating a meeting where there's not a lot of qualification might mean that the demo can be very generic. And actually, I think nowadays, just knowing that like how people buy, your prospect already knows exactly what they want to ask you, exactly what they want to see. They've probably done a lot of research on their own, a lot of talking to other people. So I think it could be a good way to like ask that on your form or, have an SDR get that through a call or a survey ahead of time, or when they book the meeting. So that sales can actually tailor their message. those are two things that you could just do. Ask for more information pre-meeting and ensure like leads are qualified the right way. Two quick things that you can do but probably could have a huge impact on increasing that conversion rate, and then having a better buyer journey, which maybe means more pipeline, more revenue.
Yeah, that's great. And, sometimes just making sure that you have the right reschedule process in place.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it where some people are closing out opportunities if there's a no-show, or they're doing something that just makes their data really difficult to follow. Just make that as easy as possible. Make sure that you have the opportunities in your system to get the meeting actually to occur and make a decision based upon the result of the meeting and not just the result of managing calendars.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. So Crissy, we are coming up to the end of our time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to say to the audience in terms of, I have a funnel, I need more help, like what can we go about doing?
Yeah, so I mean, okay, so we don't normally do this on the podcast, but I will say that funnel and how you're tracking it is just so important. And because of all these reasons, you can just uncover just the necessary data. I think some people over-index on like, I need attribution data, and then their funnel data is a mess. And I'm just like, what? A thing that's actually going to inform your revenue planning decisions, looking at bottleneck, your lead process, that's all your funnel. And so it's huge. It's like what we call basically makes up all of what we call revenue growth architecture and is like your essentials. And so if anyone is really struggling with this, I want to say, like, as an offer, CS2 can do a free like advisory call with you to talk about like how you can get better funnel data and the importance of that. And then talk about even our method to do that, or, chat with you on how you can do it on your own. But definitely open to doing that. So you can, message us on our website and say that, you found out about the offer through our podcast. We're actually going to put a more specific offer around this that'll be available soon. So stay tuned. But yeah, we want to help at CS2. And just in general, it's a really important thing. So
I love that offer. I was really excited when we started talking about, being able to provide some more assistance. I always say before I started at CS2, I was listening to the podcast and I was learning so much. And a lot of the funnel conversations that were being had on the podcast helped me develop that for organizations. So there's a lot of good information here on the podcast, but to be able to have just a one-on-one conversation, real life data, that personalized demo, so to speak, can go a long way. So thank you for offering that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and
great.
For everybody who is listening, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a colleague, with a friend, write us a review. Anything you can do to share this, these quick wins are super critical in 2023. And Crissy, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Xander. I'll be back.
Excellent. Have a nice day.
Thanks.